Hi,
How you
Pearl.
doing?
Great, how are you?
You're
I
good.
love the merch in the background.
I didn't bring any celebrities in the background today, Mark, unfortunately. So your candy's going to have to do, I guess.
Yeah, Doug, that would
Mark's
have
a
to cost you
celebrity.
extra, so yes, you're saying I'm not worth it. We're not worth it.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll let you two take it away. I'll
Okay.
show back up towards the end of the chat.
Thanks.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Pearl. Yeah, thanks, Mark. Good to have you here. I'll let you give a quick intro on who you are a little bit, so everybody can hear that.
Yeah, sure. Pleasure. Great to meet you again, Doug. And I'm 17 years, almost 30 years now in marketing and sales. I worked at Unilever for 17 years, and I spent a number of years in marketing and sales there. I had a global role where I worked in London, England, and on the Dirt is Good Omo campaign. Also worked in Canada on the launch of the campaign for Real Beauty and the Dove Self-Esteem Fund. I came to Ferrero about 13 years ago, and I worked 6 years as the marketing director in Canada on all the brands, the portfolio. And then I went to our global head office in Luxembourg, where I spent 7 years working internationally again in a role covering basically all of the world except Europe, and doing what is our premium chocolate portfolio, and most people would know as Ferrero Rocher. I'm now 18 months back in North America, working and living in New Jersey, and I'm managing and leading the marketing on the portfolio of Nutella and our mainstream chocolate snacks, which are, beloved American icons like Butterfinger, Crunch, 100 Grand, Baby Ruth, and Raisinets.
So yeah, it's interesting. As we talked just earlier, we had a little crossover. As Unilever is one of our biggest accounts, and we've had some great experience. And there's actually a lot of consumer engagement with some of the brands that you worked with, and some of the DIG campaign, and obviously the campaign for Real Beauty. We've had some great experiences there, and I think it's interesting right now to look at those campaigns, pre-COVID versus now, where you're getting towards the end of, hopefully towards the end, knock on wood, towards the end of the pandemic. And I'm kind of, I'm intrigued to know that if one of your agencies or if one of your brand teams came to you right now in the current climate with a celebrity campaign, with a campaign that really focused on the use of celebrity, what would your reaction be? What would it entail? What would it look like now, as opposed to maybe what it would look like, a couple of years ago, or even 1 year ago?
Well, I think, Doug, in general, we have to have connections with our brands that are built around objectives and solid strategies that ladder up to the longer term, and would want to make sure that what we're doing and connecting, if it was necessary or leverageable into the celebrity world, is that we're building on something that we could not just do as a one-off short-term tactical thing, but it would actually connect to and be synergistic with the overall strategy. So I think, I would say to my brand team, how does that build for the long term? Tell me about your whole strategy around celebrities and influencers, and then let's connect it over time. I think, the role of the CMO or marketing leaders tends to be shorter, and also we have a lot of young people with passion, and that's fantastic, but making sure that we have something that's going to stand the test of time, not so transactional or incidental, but something that's going to build up and we keep it. In the past on brands like Crunch, there's been celebrities like Shaq. Well, Shaq is saying it's Crunch time. He picks up, and he's a big guy, he can pick up a whole vending machine full of Crunch, which is funny, but doesn't really necessarily go into a campaignable approach. If I had everyone's crunching, which is our new campaign for Crunch, and a person who's passionate about the brand, who speaks about it authentically, comes and says, hey, I'd like to connect with you on Crunch, and we could actually put them in the campaign. Everyone's crunching, I'm crunching. Sure. And, we have an example where, for example, news anchors like Hoda Kotb has said, hey, Crunch is my favorite chocolate bar for Halloween. And that person would be coming to us with passion, be a real ambassador, and drive authenticity. So,
authenticity, yeah. I mean, authenticity is what we see is such a key component, and we when we're approached, and our company, which has been around, we just celebrated our 51st anniversary, Burns Entertainment. When we work with brands, thank you very much. When we work with companies like yours, and when we are asked, okay, let's talk about strategy, let's talk about what we should do, we will make that the first question. How important is authenticity to it? How important is, the person that you're going to work with, whether it's celebrity, whether it's influencer, and even somewhat music, if you wanted to license music, how important is the authenticity to the brand? And especially it's a little bit different right now than, let's say, the campaign for Real Beauty versus confectionery. So if you could expound on that, that'd be great.
I think that, passion, you can't necessarily buy it. And if it's not there, people will see through it. And authenticity comes from passion and a real ambassador. I think, if you had someone, again, who comes and it helps to build the celebrity's brand as well as your own brand. So, the celebrity says, hey, this is going to do great things for me. And there's a synergy there. I think that can work over the longer term and will work to build the brand. But I think in general, you have to have that authenticity. Otherwise, consumers will see through it and you won't stick with it. And the brand will lose its way, and the celebrity will not come across as genuine or authentic.
Yeah, absolutely. It's key. It is really key. And I think that today's consumer, with the internet, with all of the things that are out there and ways that people can educate themselves, it's very easy for them to find inauthentic brand ambassadors. So it is a key component in terms of consumer engagement. So let me ask you if you can give a recent example of where you at Ferrero have approached consumer engagement in a non-traditional way. How did it work? Why did it work? What would you do, I think, differently? And give us an example of something that you've done and seen success with.
Yeah, I think the challenge in the opening up world we're going through, and I'm thinking optimistically, and the fact that everyone's going to be about moving around and being much more liberated. Freedom will be the challenge to engagement, because freedom, people will be not wanting to sit like we are in front of our TV or computer screen and watching video. They want to be outside. They want to be connecting and socializing with people, which they've been starved of for a long time. So I think that challenge of being able to connect with them, engage with them in their world, on their space, and be meaningful in their lives, adding, the product and the brand have to give a service and give something back. So as we look at the world as it goes into that vastly opening up, again, I'm an optimist, that's going to happen, is that you have to find a way to engage with them in a meaningful way in their life. I tell my young marketers that no one ever walks out the door in the morning and says, what I really want to see today is an ad for Crunch Bar. So we have to find them where they are and do it in a relevant way. And I think relevance is the doorway to engagement.
I'll
give you an example of what we've done. So for example, on Butterfinger, we had a really interesting engagement we did, which was to integrate the product and the brand into a game on Twitch. So we were sponsoring the launch of Halo. We're doing a promotion, basic, you buy a couple bars, you snap your receipt, you get some free content with Halo, and you could win one of the new Xbox Series games. But then you actually say, okay, so how do you make it really interesting and engaging? Well, you find it in the streaming world of Twitch, where gamers are playing. And we created a game that was an integration. And I grew up in the world of asteroids and Atari.
Showing your age, Mark.
I'm showing my age, but we created a game like Asteroids. So the Butterfinger chocolate bits and pieces are flying, and the gamers have to shoot them down to save Master Chief from the asteroid pieces. And we just got some results back, and there was a 9% lift in what would be almost purchase intent. Of course, it's claimed, but in that audience, they found it very relevant and integrated, and it wasn't interrupting. So I think that's a non-traditional way that we could say we've created a value add. You know, they had fun, they were engaged, they felt that Butterfinger made a lot of sense there. And coming back to your world, Doug, of celebrities, I mean, we are, you know, connecting with those influencers in the gaming world, like Munchkin Doom and Big Cheese Kit. These guys and these people have the real credence in that world. They may not be the biggest, you know, celebrities like a Kardashian or The Rock, but they are ambassadors for the gaming world and are speaking positively about Butterfinger, and they're loving this game that we created. So that builds the authenticity again, and it's really a strong engagement.
So yeah, so to take the gaming world and to kind of take it to the next place, you know, it's non-traditional campaigns, and we kind of talked about it. We touched upon it a little bit earlier. You know, we work with, you know, some of the most non-traditional, we've done some of the most non-traditional campaigns recently. Crocs, as you can see, the collaborations, Bad Bunny, Ruby Rose, different talent, and then equity deals. So we had a campaign with Voss Water, with The Rock. So it's a little bit non-traditional. It's not the usual, we're going to put this person on television or on digital, holding the product, extolling the virtues. But that still does have a place. And I kind of want to get your opinion, you know, where does that fit? Where do you feel celebrity can still work? You know, assuming that you're authentic, assuming that you're in the right boat and you're using them in the right way. Where do you see it being best used? Where do you see celebrity or influencer? What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think it comes back again to the idea of authenticity and passion for the brand. So another example, we have a new campaign for Butterfinger called Butterfinger Investigators, and it's a simple mechanism of a tug of war between an owner who is smart or smarter than the thief who is smart, and they have this tug of war. And of course, they need the Butterfinger investigators to solve and get the crime of the theft, and get the Butterfinger back to the owner. And we found a great celebrity, Amir Arison from the Blacklist, who is one of the investigators. And he has gotten completely passionate about the brand, and he's been engaged dramatically in even writing new things and doing interesting stuff for us. And so, you know, you've got passion, you've got authenticity, you've got a non-traditional approach where we're actually building a mini series around the investigators. And he's the guy who's completely put himself in character, and he's put himself in the character to be driving this concept of the investigators. And the you know, Butterfinger is so irresistible that you need an investigator to bring it back. But to take it to another extension of that, and a real kind of interesting engagement approach, is we have a call-in line on the most recent commercial, which is 1-833 tell BFI. And if you go on that and you dial it, you get Amir, who is saying, you know, if your Butterfinger's been stolen, press 1.
Sure.
So this is
different engagement. It's different ways for the consumer to engage, you know, and get a little bit more touch than typically, you know, watching that spot.
Yeah.
And do you, how has that worked? And sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but like, how is that though? Have you found that engagement has translated, or is it, you know, are you looking in that capacity for that direct correlation to sales? Everybody does, but if you can't, do you at least see more engagement that promotes your brand and gets you out there in a different way?
Well, you know, a call-in telephone number is a very easy way to catch engagement and to see what's working, right? And, you know, the funny thing is, as I said, you know, people are going to be liberated. They want to get out. They don't want to be near their computer screen, but they've got their phone with them all the time. It's an extension of their hand. And so we've found that, you know, when these commercials come on, either 1-844, what is it on Crunch, or 1-833 tell BFI for Butterfinger, we get thousands of calls and people engaging in the line. So it's really quite interesting to see, and really very, very, I would say, responsive.
Yeah, well, definitely. And then it's obviously great for you. You can track the information, you can provide that, and then gives you feedback for the next time. So looking also too, and sticking kind of in the same realm regarding consumer engagement, short-term engagements, they carry a great deal of weight for a product launch, for a new variant of a brand. If you're coming out with something like different candy, a different line extension, look at some of the brands that have added different things to it that are traditional brands. Where do you think the best fit is with celebrity and influencer? Do you find that short term? Do you find it long term? Or is it really brand or product specific within your portfolio? What's your perspective on that?
I think that you have to get that synergy right. You have to find the influencer who's passionate and authentic. If you then go into, I wouldn't, and we've had this conversation, I wouldn't necessarily want to base my entire program on the celebrity world, but they do play a role, especially if the celebrity says, yeah, this works for me and it can build my brand and there's a synergy and a value add for them. So I think that it has to, again, fit into the broader strategy. I would say for, new campaigns, it could throw gasoline on the fire and could really, really amp them up if you find the right opportunity and the right celebrity who could be talking about it in a fun and engaging way. And we found that, with Amir Arison and the Butterfinger investigators, he is so passionate. He's actually trying to write scenes. He's talking to the director, and he's very engaged in that. Sure. And so I think, for iconic historic brands like that, it works very well. And then if I go to the Nutella brand, we have a whole series with William Sonoma and different chefs, and we're going to be giving people inspiration and ideas about how to bake with Nutella, how to make great, interesting, and creative breakfast with Nutella. And of course, building back into the engagement idea that people are, I would say, working at home and living at work. Sure. And they need breaks. They need ways to also make, the moment special, but break from this video world we're living in. And they want to find fun and creative ways to, add some pleasure, some indulgence, some joy to breakfast. So we're doing a whole bunch of things with that and different celebrities which are related to cooking and baking with William Sonoma. And on top of that, we're doing, with World Nutella Day, which just finished on beginning of February. We had Hilary Duff, who was giving us a celebrity endorsement to that too.
So it's interesting, and you touched on a few different things, and I'll keep coming back to when we're talking with clients and the agencies, and their talking strategy. One of the key elements that we look at is trying to make sure that we're going to, I guess, diversify. If we're going to work with a multitude of different talent, we might say that you want a chef, you want a traditional influencer, you want a celebrity, you want a musician. Does that create the fact that there's such a diversification right now in the marketplace of, if you talk about 30, 40 years ago or 30 years ago, they were really just celebrities and athletes. And now you've got such a diverse group that can be in here. And then you have gamers and you have chefs. So does that almost like create a bigger cause of concern for you that, hey, we don't want to go too deep in with one segment of celebrity, or are you open to everything? Because I think that's where we're trying to counsel our clients, is to really dig deep and figure out, okay, who is your consumer and who really does fit that role the best? And when my team engages, we're going to ask every single agency and every single brand team that's on that project, okay, what is that? Like, you might come up with that name. It might be Paula, and she might be your consumer 25 to 34. But at the end of the day, who does really appeal most to her? And I'm just wondering, does that cause even more, I don't know, consternation or more debate on the marketing side, how to do that and how to go about it?
Well, I think that, the brand has to be bigger than its communications. And then the net effect is that the brand has to be built over time and has to be built with consistency through every touch point. And, you're talking about a multitude of touch points and a a range of influencers, celebrities, musicians, what have you, Doug. But I think that if you come back to the first principles of your brand identity and your brand values and personality need to be built through whichever influencer or celebrity you're using, and you can have various different levels of that. But of course, you have to have the great discipline and the filter, and then think about how to create that mechanism to be both, I would say, focused and disciplined, but also organic and entrepreneurial.
Sure.
If you find someone who comes to you and says, "Hey, I really want to work with you because I've got this great passion for your product," and we've had several of these on Butterfinger, where people are saying, "This is my favorite chocolate bar. I want to be talking about Butterfinger." It works great, because then we can actually say, okay, how do we do something together that works to build your brand and our brand,
Sure.
as I said before. But that may not be part of the kind of game plan as you start. But to be entrepreneurial and to be thinking in a dynamic way, say, oh, you know what, this could be a great opportunity. Let's see how we can build it in.
Sure.
And actually, that's how gaming came apart from into the world of Butterfinger. There are bigger, more well-funded brands doing huge amounts of stuff with gaming. I mean, and gaming is the new appointment television in some people's lives. So we are saying, how do we compete with those big brands that have 10x our budget? Well, you've got to do it in a way that's obviously creating the right connection with your long-term strategy. But we said, hey, we had a first instance where it worked with Final Fantasy, and we said, how do we deepen this, but make sure the brand is completely integrated with the asteroids and Save the Chief.
Sure.
So I think you got to be open-minded. You got to be continuing to assess in a real-time way, because brands become relevant and really engaged when they connect with cultural truths and cultural moments, like the gaming phenomenon, when everyone
Sure.
is stuck at home.
Right.
So I would say that if you have the right thought process around your brand and its strategy and its vision, you can be working at those different levels you're talking about, whether it's the big megastar down to the micro and nano influencer.
So a question that came in was, and it's really interesting because we've been talking about gaming, is emerging technologies. Now I'll steer clear of TikTok for the two of us, the over 40 crowd, a little bit. But how important is it for you when you're working with your agencies and with your brand teams, that you are, as for some of the brands that you're talking about and some of your key, your core brands, how important are emerging technologies, whether it's going to Clubhouse, whether it's going to where some of these consumers are, whether it is TikTok, or whether it's being in different places. So gaming obviously is a big place. Does it create also too a new landscape where you can get away quickly from the core audience, where that core audience is? It's funny, on the coast and somewhat Chicago and New Jersey, we think that everyone's DVRing, everybody is watching the same Netflix shows, and it really ignores a good part of the country that really isn't. And that is watching television in real time. And that's where they're still getting a lot of their news and a lot of their information. So how do you balance that as a marketer, especially with, let's say, younger staff that's coming in and telling you, hey, this is where we need to be? So how do you find that balance, and what do you really, where do you feel the company's going in regards to that?
Well, I think we're mass market brands. We want to be everywhere the consumer wants to shop and view and engage. And so reach is the oxygen of brands. So looking at new technology, new mediums like gaming, also down to, we're big believers in television as well. And television is the fastest reach vehicle, but we are tacking and moving dynamically towards more and more digital, and making sure that we have great online videos, which are not not just lifts and breaks and pickups of what we've done on TV, but actually work in a more future forward approach. Our agency Pyro, who works on both of the Butterfinger and Crunch brands, actually our whole portfolio there, created something which is a long form entertainment, which is the Butterfinger investigation mini series and webisodes. And that's because we're competing with entertainment today. And when you look at all the streaming services, the consumer can find themselves digitally and technologically empowered to avoid advertising. So you got to think like an entertainer, because that's their competitive space. And we're working on doing that in all the brands to make sure we get the engagement and the reach we need. Webisodes is one of them. On the Nutella brand, we're working on in-stream video and in-feed social video, and trying to find ways to really, trigger the crave and be, sparking the deliciousness of Nutella in a relevant and engaging way, hitting them and talking to them exactly where it would make sense. Because if you interrupt, you're going to get avoided. If you're making sense, but also adding value and being relevant and meaningful, like adding value to people, the product should give people a service. If you can do that in a way and a time, I always say, if you have someone on the Food Network and they see a delicious Nutella crepe, they're going to say, I want that. That makes sense. So we're looking at all of the different levels of technology and all the different mediums to catch reach and to catch our audience wherever they are, and building that relevance, as I said, whether it's a food connection, a gaming connection, or even the mobile connection with the phone numbers that I talked about.
So I'm gonna put you on a little bit on the hot seat on the question. But it's good because you're in the confectionery world, and it's a different type of situation. But we've seen with so much change in the last year, not just due to COVID, but social issues and social justice and brands standing for different elements. Do you feel that right now where you are at Ferrero, it's a different perspective than you would have at, say, at Unilever, where you might represent brands such as Dove or some messages or some brands that have had messaging? Have you, has that been a topic that's been brought up from the C-suite level down? Because I would imagine that right now it's impossible, and we face it every day when we're talking to brands. We're trying to say, let's incorporate some element. So we'll push some element to our brands to say, hey, look, let's put a donation towards a talent's charity or charitable endeavors. Let's do something like that. How is it in your space? Have you felt have you felt the pressure to do that? Or have you felt, hey, look, we are right now where we are, we can just let people derive pleasure from our products and keep it light and keep it airy versus having to take a tough stand where some other brands might have to?
So just to answer that, that's a great question, Doug. Thank you. It's on a couple of different levels, I would say. I would touch on, if you think about what brands need to do in the world, is they have the money to send out messages. We are I liken brands to leaders who, if you're going to try to command attention and say something, you've got to give some value added. So by that, I mean, the brand has to, again, serve its target, serve its audience, be meaningful in their lives. And I think what people want from these categories is that emotional uplift, that joy. They want it to be light. They don't want us to make a political statement per se, and try to make a social cause issue. However, at the same time, we have to give back. So we have a promotion we did over the holiday season with No Kid Hungry, where people could buy a jar of Nutella, and that would give a kid a breakfast. We're working on that over the longer term to continue to support initiatives like that, because that's an important, as a food product, that we want to give that back. And so I think that is part of a longer term strategy and thought process to say, how do we add value back to society? And then if I bridge in and say, okay, what can we do in terms of our communications? Well, I think we can be representative, but also, as I said, as a leader, providing a sense of direction and a sense of optimism, a sense of hope, and a sense of, I would say, big picture, where can things go? So we should be giving people, not in a political way so much, but a sense of empowerment and powerfulness. So unstereotyping, being, playing people not in typecasts or stereotypes or roles that would be traditional, but trying to think more broadly about, how we can make sure that casting is and the acting and everything is authentic and giving the right messages. So finding ways to make people powerful and
Right.
empowered in the advertising, and not having those traditional kind of situations of that put people in a not progressive way. There was a situation in one of the spots we were doing where I said, actually, I want to switch these casting people around because we need to actually send a different message here.
Sure.
And so I think that's what brands can do and brands need to do. And in the context of these categories, we don't put a smile on people's face and give them a bit of joy.
Of course. And so, and into that, and putting that smile on the face, and I'll bring it back to world of celebrity, as you can imagine. Are there, examples or any campaigns that you've also seen, and if not, I guess we could talk more about just ways to work with talent where you're just bringing them out there for that smile, and you mentioned Shaq and being able to do that, where you're really trying to emit, a good feeling, and it's a fun campaign. Tell us, in terms of what you're seeing out there right now, especially in your space, but then also in other areas, in CPG, in automotive. Are you seeing a different trend that you might follow when it comes to using celebrity for emotion or using the influencer? So I don't know if that's exactly clear, but are you seeing that the opportunities are presenting themselves in a bigger way with celebrities who are now bigger than just their TV shows? So they're brands in and of themselves. So if you look at Brie Larson with Nissan, so she's somebody who personifies female empowerment and giving back and doing things like that. So do you see the vehicle being the talent and finding a way to emit or to emote positive feelings for your brand?
Well, I think sure, if you find the right celebrity, and I think that Brie Larson one for Nissan's excellent because it shows female empowerment, and that works for her, works for the brand, and so I think those examples are really great. You've got the people from Schitt's Creek, the guy who's on the M&M's commercial,
Dan Levy.
And it talks about the product, and I think it's definitely possible. I say again, we got to be careful that we're not putting a celebrity in, not thinking it through. And we've talked, Doug, that with young and the lack of continuity sometimes in marketing, the organization has no memory. And
right.
You end up with people and situations where things come in and out, and the consistency isn't there over the longer term. So I definitely see that there are opportunities and roles for that, but I wouldn't want that to overshadow. As you mentioned, these celebrities are huge mega brands in some cases, and their brand is bigger than our brand. If I think, if you looked at their total reach, their total audience, and their revenue, if you want to go to that space, they'd be bigger brands. So
would that cause you to shy away from working with them, or would you, because if they make a mistake or if something goes wrong or you don't get the messaging across, now, we're knock on wood, we're fortunate that neither one of us has had too many cases where it didn't go well, but I think that there's so much more good that can be had by their audience and their who they reach that might be bigger than yours. So would that cause you concern, or would that keep you away from that?
It would definitely ensure, I would ensure that we think it through in terms of how you have integration, you have a connection point, and it makes the brand work in its deliver its promise and its proposition to the consumer. So in some cases, I've seen it as a bolt-on. It's just like, insert celebrity here. There's no real connection to the bigger picture. And in that case, the celebrity is trumping, and you're actually advertising the celebrity.
Right.
In the case of what you're trying to look at is that there's a pivot on the product. And so that, the expression I would use is that if you take the product out, the ad collapses. And that means that you have the storytelling and the situation being absolutely that the celebrity is building and in the content and the story, the product and the brand, and it pivots on that necessity to have the brand or the product in there.
You look at the campaign for Real Beauty, which we discussed earlier, and even Dirt is Good, where you could augment, and it was done, and we did some work in those, where you augmented the campaign. The campaign was really the focal point, but the talent was there to amplify certain aspects of the good. Can you tell us, can you give us a little bit, anything about, those are two iconic campaigns, but maybe Campaign for Real Beauty is a little bit more known to people in the US?
Well, I think a absolutely brilliant piece of creative was done around the Campaign for Real Beauty during the COVID period, where you said, real beauty can be courageous. And you saw people who were on the front line, our beloved medical workers, our frontline workers, wearing the mask and taking them off after a very long stint of caring for people. And it was this idea that real beauty can be courageous and brave and bold. And so I think that's very interesting, and you could actually find a way that you could connect then in a person, maybe a famous person, into that. And it would be, again, consistency over time, right on the brand message of real beauty, and not diluting. And so you find these opportunities to create, you said highlights. So on the graphic equalizer, you would actually have a highlight there, and you'd have a bit of gasoline on the fire, so to speak,
Sure.
And you'd amplify. And so I think that's a very key aspect that you could say it works.
Absolutely. I'm looking to see, there's a couple other questions. One question that's pretty interesting, and as we get towards the end, do you find it difficult sometimes to get all of your agencies on the same page to execute campaigns? Is there anything that you see, with so many different questions out there, so many different ways? Is it more difficult these days, where you have everybody kind of in their little segment, versus before you had a PR firm and an ad agency, or you just had the ad agency leading? Is that something that you found to be difficult in your position?
I think that the world of today is about collaboration and about more of us around the table with specialties and experience that can drive towards the bigger picture and the broader and stronger result. So the expression is, no one of us is as smart as all of us. Now, what we need to do is make sure that we have a very, very crystal clear brand communication strategy, right from the vision and ambition right down to the executional pieces. And we've just created that on our brands. And the IA team is now, interagency team is now infused with that. And so everyone has a guiding light. And then the other part is, as consumers are obviously media savvy, but also inundated with a fragmented multitude of mediums these days, we have to have very, very clear identities. And that can be visual, can be sound, can obviously all the colors. And so those identities need to be repeatable assets. So with the IAT scope and way of working, what we do is we bring all those pieces together with consistent strategy from top to bottom, and a set of repeatable assets.
Makes sense. That's great. Well, thanks, Mark. I see Pearl is here, but thanks for your time. It's been enlightening, our few conversations, but really appreciate you taking the time.
I think it was great, Doug, and I thank you for the interview and the time. And you know, Burns Entertainment, and you are the best agency I've never worked with.
Well, we're going to change that as soon as we hang this up. There's going to be a deck in your inbox, so we'll find it.
Okay.
Making it happen.
Yes.
That was so fun. Definitely, that it's incredible to see who a brand chooses to be the face, the person, the character, the symbol of their brand. It totally can take the brand to the next level or not, depending on how they operate in the real world. But I took Scott Galloway's brand sprint, and that's a whole part of his lecture. It's really important to see how the character of a real life person can take the brand to a next level.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sure, absolutely.
Thanks.
Thank you, Pearl.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Pearl.
Mark. Thanks,
Bye.
Doug. We'll see
Take
you guys
care.
soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, we're on to our last session